You ever had a moment you knew you weren't supposed to want? Like the kind that makes your chest tighten just thinking about it because it's not just wrong, it's forbidden. Yeah, that's how it started for me. With a glance, a touch, and the one woman I should have never looked at that way. Her name was Elena Carter, and she was my best friend's mom. The morning it happened wasn't special. I mean, not in the beginning. I was tossing my tool bag into the back of the truck, same as any other Thursday, when Caleb, my coworker and roommate, walked out holding a gas station coffee like it was barely holding him up. "You good?" I asked. He gave me a tired smile. "Yeah, just heading to my mom's place today. Roof's leaking again. Needs a quick patch job." "Your mom's?" I echoed, only half listening. I was focused on bungee strapping the ladder down. "Yeah," Caleb nodded. "You'll like the spot. She's out near Willow Creek. Real peaceful." At that point, I didn't think twice. It was another job, another house, another roof under the sun. We'd worked dozens, like at rental properties, vacation homes, some half-fallen-in messes. This one just happened to be his mother's, but I didn't know it would be the one that would mess with my head. The one that would make me feel something I hadn't felt in years. We pulled into the long gravel driveway just past 10. The yard stretched wide and clean with oaks standing like quiet sentinels around the property. The house itself was a modest two-story whitewashed siding stone porch, wine chimes dancing in the light breeze. There was something about it that felt lived in, loved, like time didn't rush there. "She's inside," Caleb said, pulling on his gloves. "Come on." I told her we'd get started early. We hadn't even made it to the porch when the front door opened, and that's when I saw her. She stepped out into the morning light, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Loose button down. Soft jeans that hugged her in a way that made time slow. Her hair was twisted up in a messy knot, a few strands falling over her cheek, catching sunlight like gold thread. But it wasn't her body that hit me first. It was the way she carried herself. Confident. Tired, maybe, but graceful. Like she had lived through some things and come out the other side stronger. "Morning," she called out, her voice honey warm. "Thanks for coming, boys." Caleb barely looked up. "No problem. This is Logan, my buddy roommate and the best damn shingle guy I know." I gave a quick nod. "Nice to meet you, ma'am." She tilted her head and smiled just a little. "Please, it's Elena." The way she said her name like a whisper you weren't supposed to hear sent a flicker of something low in my chest. "All right," I managed, trying not to notice how my eyes had dropped, how I noticed the way her blouse clung a little too perfectly to the curve of her waist. "Elena, it is." She laughed. Just a quiet breath of a sound, but it hung there right between us. The job was easy. A few shingles to replace some flashing to reinforce and a bit of rot near the chimney to clean out. Caleb set up the ladder while I unloaded the gear. By the time I climbed up onto the roof, sweat was already forming along the base of my neck. 15 minutes in, Elena came outside with 2 cold water bottles. "Figured you boys might need these before the sun gets too mean," she said, stepping close. I reached down to take one from her hand, and for a split second her fingers brushed mine. It was small, barely anything, but something moved. Something slow, warm, and undeniably real. And I wasn't the only one who felt it. Her eyes met mine for a beat too long. "Thanks," I murmured, trying to make it sound casual. She gave a small nod, her lips curving into that half smile again before walking back inside. I watched her go. Her hips moved with a rhythm that felt like music no one else could hear. Caleb didn't notice. He never did. For the next hour, I worked like hell to keep my eyes on the roof and not on the kitchen window where she sometimes passed, talking on the phone, brushing her hair back, sipping from a tall glass. But every movement of hers felt intentional, like she knew I was watching, like she wanted me to. When I came down to measure a gutter section, she was outside again, arms folded loosely across her chest, eyes shaded under the porch awning. "Everything all right so far?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, wiping the back of my neck. "Your roof's in pretty decent shape." She nodded slowly, then said, "My husband used to take care of this stuff." The way she said used to hit me like a quiet note in a dark room. Soft, but heavy. "I'm sorry I offered." She gave a small smile. "It's all right. Been almost 3 years now. Some days feel longer." There was a silence that settled between us then. Not awkward, not forced, just real. She looked at me for a moment longer, then said, "Well, I'll let you get back to it. But thank you." I could have said any time, but it didn't feel like the right time. Instead, I just gave her a nod. She turned away and I let my eyes linger. By the time we wrapped up, the sun was high and brutal. Sweat clung to every inch of my shirt. As we packed up, Elena stepped out once more, this time barefoot on the porch steps. "Looks great," she said, her gaze shifting between us. "Really? Thank you." Caleb waved like it was nothing. All in a day's work. But as I climbed into the passenger seat, I glanced back one more time. And there she was, standing in the doorway, one hand on her hip, watching, not staring, not smiling, just looking. And the way she looked, it stayed with me. That night as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about her, about the way her blouse had dipped slightly when she leaned over, the curve of her smile, the loneliness in her eyes that somehow mirrored my own. I told myself it was just a fluke, a one-time job. But deep down I knew this wasn't the last time I'd see Elena Carter. And God help me, I didn't want it to be. I didn't hear from her for almost 2 weeks, but I thought about her. More often than I wanted to admit. Not in the obvious ways though, those happened too, usually late at night when everything got quiet, and I let myself replay her voice. Her smile, the way her shirt curved when she leaned in. But it wasn't just that. It was the way she made me feel seen. Like I wasn't just another guy with calloused hands and dust on his boots. Like I mattered. Even if only for a few minutes on a porch in the sun. So when her message came, it didn't feel like a surprise. "Hi Logan, this is Elena, Caleb's mom. Hope it's okay," I texted. "My porch light's been flickering lately. Would you have time to take a look sometime this week?" I stared at the screen longer than I should have. She could have asked her son, or any handyman, but she didn't. She asked me. "Of course, I can swing by tomorrow after 3 if that works." Her reply came less than a minute later. "Perfect. Thank you. Really." I must have read that last word 10 times. Not the thank you, the really. The next afternoon was warm. One of those humid days where the sun sticks to your skin and everything feels slower. I pulled into the same driveway, gravel crunching beneath my tires. And there she was, waiting. She was standing on the porch again, but different this time. Not just a homeowner waiting on a favor. There was something in the way she leaned against the post, one ankle crossed over the other, hands tucked into the pockets of her sundress. It was light blue, thin fabric. A little wind caught the hem. My throat tightened. "Hey," I said, trying to keep it casual as I grabbed my toolbox. She smiled soft and easy. "Hey, yourself. Thanks again for coming." "Happy to," I replied, following her inside. The moment I stepped in, I felt it again, that warmth. Not just from the temperature, but from her. The house smelled like coffee and something faintly floral. Jazz played low from an old speaker in the corner, the kind of music you didn't talk over. "The light's been weird for a few days," she said, motioning to the porch fixture as we passed. "It flickers, then cuts off completely. I think it's just loose, but..." I nodded. "I'll take a look." She stayed nearby as I worked, but she didn't hover. Instead, she stood with one hand resting lightly on the doorframe, her other arm wrapped across her body, watching. When our eyes met, she didn't look away. That did something to me. The fix was simple, just a loose wire in the fixture. A few twists, a quick reattachment, and it was done. "Should be good now," I said, brushing my hands on my jeans. She smiled. "You make it look easy." I shrugged. Years of practice, but neither of us moved. We just stood there. Something in the air felt different, charged. Then she said it. "Would you like some coffee? I just made a fresh pot." It wasn't the offer that stopped me, it was the way she asked. Soft, careful, like she was giving me a choice. And part of me knew if I said yes, something would shift between us. I'd love that I said. We sat in the kitchen, 2 cups between us, light pouring in through gauzy curtains. The coffee was rich, but I barely tasted it. I was too focused on her voice, the way she stirred sugar into her cup with slow, delicate swirls. "I've lived here for 15 years, she said, eyes resting on the rim of her mug. "Feels quieter now," her tone softened. "My husband passed a little over 2 years ago." I looked at her carefully. I'm sorry. She met my gaze steady but not guarded. Thank you. It's still strange sometimes. The quiet. She paused. You ever notice how silence can be louder than sound? I nodded. More than I'd like to admit. She smiled faintly. That's what I thought. The conversation drifted after that. We talked about work, about how she used to teach art classes, about the maple tree in her backyard that dropped leaves year-round no matter the season. Every now and then her knee would brush against mine under the table. Light, barely there contact. But I felt it, like a quiet drumbeat just beneath the surface. And she felt it too, because she never moved away. I left an hour later. The job had been done in 20 minutes, but I stayed, because something in her made me want to. Before I stepped off the porch, she walked with me to the truck. Her hand brushed mine when I reached for the door handle. Not accidental. Thank you again, Logan, she said, voice low. Anytime I replied. And I meant it. She stood there as I pulled away, one hand resting lightly on her hip, the breeze playing with the edge of her dress. She didn't wave, didn't turn away, just watched. And I couldn't stop looking at her in the rearview mirror until the road turned and I lost her. The next few days passed like sand through a sieve. Quiet. Normal. Except nothing felt normal anymore. Because every time my phone buzzed, I checked too fast. Every time I walked past a woman with dark hair and a sundress, my heart jumped before logic pulled it back down. Then it came again. Hey, Logan. Do you happen to have your truck free this weekend? I need to pick up a few things for the house furniture. Maybe some supplies. Would be a huge help. I read it twice. She didn't ask Caleb, didn't rent a U-Haul. She asked me, I'm free Saturday. What time should I come by? Her answer came with a smile emoji. Let's say 9, I'll make coffee. Again. I stared at that little face longer than I should have because I already knew. This wasn't just a ride. This was something else. And it had already begun. Saturday morning came slower than usual. I was up early, showered, dressed, standing in front of my mirror longer than necessary. I don't normally care what I wear to haul patio chairs and light fixtures, but this morning wasn't normal. I settled on a plain gray t-shirt, the soft kind that fit just right across the shoulders, and a pair of jeans worn in all the right places. I told myself it was for comfort, but I knew better. I pulled into Elena's driveway just before 9. She was already outside, keys in one hand, sunglasses in the other. That same soft, knowing smile on her lips. Morning, she said, voice light but warm. Morning, I replied, stepping out of the truck. My eyes moved casual at first, but then lingered. She wore a pale cream blouse, fitted just enough to tease the curves beneath sleeves rolled to the elbow. High-waisted jeans hugged her like they'd been tailored for every soft angle and sway. Her hair was loose today, not pinned up like before, dark waves falling over one shoulder. I couldn't look away. And I think she knew, because her smile curved just slightly deeper. You got your list, I asked, keeping my voice easy. Trying not to overdo it, she said, walking toward the passenger side. But no promises once we hit the store. Her hand brushed mine as she climbed in. Again barely. Again deliberate. We drove out to a large home improvement center just outside town, about a 30-minute ride. The windows were down and the morning breeze was still soft enough to be kind. A couple of songs drifted from the radio, neither of us in a rush to fill the quiet. It was easy, and that scared me more than anything. Because easy was dangerous. At one point, sitting at a red light, she turned slightly toward me, her voice soft. Thank you again, Logan. I know this probably isn't how you imagined spending your weekend. I shook my head, eyes still on the road. Honestly, this is better than anything I'd planned. She didn't respond at first, but I felt her watching me. Felt the air change just slightly in the cab of the truck. When I glanced over, she looked away fast, but not embarrassed. Just caught. Inside the store, we moved through aisles with ease. She pointed at things she liked. I loaded boxes into the cart, sometimes brushing her hand as we both reached for something. She never flinched, never stepped back. At one point, I was lifting a heavy box onto the lower rack and felt her watching me. I looked up, and for a split second, she didn't hide it. The way her eyes tracked the movement of my arms, the tight stretch of my shirt. She looked away slowly, like she wasn't ashamed, just letting me know she saw. And God, I felt it. Everywhere. There was a tension now. But it wasn't awkward. It was the kind of tension that wraps itself around the base of your spine and tugs soft and persistent. The kind that grows in quiet spaces between words and glances and the brush of skin that lingers too long. We stopped for lunch at a cafe tucked on a quiet street. A small patio with iron tables, ivy trailing up one side of the brick wall. "I've always liked this place," she said, sipping iced tea. "Used to come here with my husband before... well, before." I nodded, letting her say what she wanted, letting the rest hang. She looked at me then over the rim of her glass. "You seem happy in what you do?" I shrugged. "Roofing's not glamorous, but it's honest. I like working with my hands, seeing the result at the end of the day." She smiled. "I admire that. A lot of people spend their lives chasing things they don't even want." Her fingers traced the condensation on her glass slowly, and my eyes followed the movement, the way her wrist turned the elegant bend of her knuckles. Even her stillness was graceful. "Maybe that's what I've been doing lately," she said after a moment. "Trying to stop chasing." I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. The drive back was quieter, but not from distance. It was the kind of silence where two people are too aware of the space between them and how little it takes to close it. When we pulled into her driveway, the sun was just beginning to stretch longer across the yard. I helped unload the supplies. Stacked boxes near the garage carried planters and cushions to the porch. As I lifted the last bag from the bed of the truck, I felt her behind me. Close. When I turned, she was only a few feet away, arms crossed softly beneath her chest, fingers brushing the edge of her blouse. "You've been a lifesaver today," she said, voice low. "I would have been at this all weekend." "You know you can call me anytime," I replied. Her eyes didn't waver. "I know." The moment held, longer than it should have. Then, as if catching herself, she glanced away and said, "Well, I should start putting everything together." I nodded, stepping back, though every part of me wanted to stay. "If you need help," I said, "you know how to reach me." She smiled, but this time it was slower, deeper. "I do." As I drove away, I watched her in the mirror again. This time she didn't look away. And neither did I. The texts came more often after that. Short ones, casual. Updates about the deck. Photos of new patio lights. Questions about stain colors and hardware brands. But underneath it all, there was a rhythm building. Something soft, almost shy, but steady. Then came the message that changed everything. "Do you ever take weekends off?" 6 words. But they hit me harder than I expected. Sometimes, YA pause. Then I was thinking of getting away for a few days, just to breathe. It's been a while. I stared at the message, heart ticking louder in my ears. I didn't need to ask where or why. I just asked, "Would you want company?" There was a longer pause, long enough for me to wonder if I'd overstepped. Then yes, just that. One word. But I felt everything in it. The cabin at Pine Hollow was tucked into the hillside like it had been waiting for us. A-frame wood slate roof, wraparound porch with a view of the lake. When I pulled up just before sunset, the world felt quieter, slower, like it had exhaled and left only the two of us and the breath between. Elena was already there. She stood by the front entrance, her fingers brushing lightly over her phone, sunlight catching in the strands of her hair. She wore jeans and a pale sweater, the neckline wide enough to slip just slightly off one shoulder. When she looked up and saw me, something passed between us, gentler than tension, heavier than friendship. Like we were both fully aware that we couldn't unstep what we were stepping into. I climbed out of the truck, my voice quieter than usual. "Hey." Her smile was soft. "You came." I said I would. She didn't move, just watched me for a beat, then turned and opened the door. We didn't talk much while we unpacked. It wasn't awkward. It just wasn't necessary. There was music playing low from her speaker, some old jazz track, the kind that rolls like velvet through a space. The cabin had one bed, king-sized. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. Later, we sat on the balcony, wine glasses resting in our hands, the lake below, catching the last breath of sunlight. Our knees touched lightly, and this time neither of us shifted away. She looked at me after a while. Really looked. "I almost canceled," she whispered. Why? Because this, whatever it is, feels a little crazy. I took a breath, held her gaze. Sometimes crazy's exactly what we need. She didn't reply, but she didn't pull away either. Her fingers grazed mine on the armrest, slowly, like she was testing the electricity between us. And when I turned my hand and let her touch settle into my palm, I felt it. That subtle, undeniable pull. She didn't kiss me then. Not yet. We just sat there, the silence stretching soft around us, letting the inevitable build slowly, deliberately. When we went back inside, the lights were dim warm, casting soft shadows across the wood-paneled walls. She poured more wine. I watched her from the couch, watched the way her hips moved beneath the denim, the way her sweater clung to the gentle rise and fall of her breath. "Do you want another glass?" she asked. I didn't answer. I just stood across the room slowly and took the glass from her hand, set it down, and said nothing. She looked up at me, her breath already shifting, shorter, tighter, held just beneath her collarbone. Then her hand rose, brushed the side of my neck, fingertips dragging just enough to make my skin sing. I leaned in. Finally. The kiss was slow, not hesitant, intentional. Like we both knew exactly what we were doing and exactly what it meant. Her lips were soft, warm. She tasted like Cabernet and courage. My hand rested on her lower back, her body arching slightly into mine like it had been waiting for this exact shape, this exact pressure. When she whispered my name into the space between us, I felt it everywhere. We didn't rush. If anything, it felt like we were both afraid to move too fast and lose the moment. Her hands mapped my shoulders, my arms, then slid beneath the hem of my shirt, palms pressed against my skin like memory. Her breath hitched as I peeled her sweater over her head. And there, just for a moment, I paused. She stood in front of me in nothing but a lace-trimmed bra, her chest rising and falling, her hair tousled, her lips parted just slightly. She didn't cover herself. She didn't flinch. She let me see her. The stretch marks on her hips soft and delicate like silver rivers across golden skin. The faint scar beneath her ribcage. The way her body curved without apology. She wasn't perfect. She was real. And she was beautiful in a way that shook something loose in me. My fingers traced the line of her shoulder, the dip of her waist, the warm hollow just beneath her navel. She watched me, eyes dark, unreadable but open. She pulled me in this time, and everything else faded. The next morning was quiet. I woke before her. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, striping her bare back in light and shadow. Her body curled lightly toward mine, her arm resting across my chest. One knee draped over my thigh, like she belonged there. I didn't move. I just watched her breathe. When she stirred, her voice was still thick with sleep. "You always stare at women while they're unconscious." "Only the ones I like," I murmured. She laughed. Not loud, just a breath of warmth across my skin. Then she kissed my shoulder and didn't say anything else. We spent the day walking a nearby trail. Didn't go far, just enough to feel the woods around us. The air smelled like pine and rain-soaked bark. At one point, she stopped near a lookout point, eyes scanning the lake below. "You don't talk much, do you?" she teased gently. I smirked. Never been good at talking, just to fill silence. "I like that," she said. Then her voice dropped slightly. "Most people are afraid of silence." I looked at her. Really looked. She had wind in her hair, sunlight on her collarbones, the kind of beauty that wasn't loud but devastating in its simplicity. I reached up, brushed a loose strand from her cheek. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. When I kissed her, it wasn't about lust. It was about recognition. Her lips parted. Her hand slid up my chest. And that time when I pulled her closer, I didn't have to ask. That night back in the cabin, we didn't undress each other like lovers in a hurry. We undressed like people who needed to remember. Her fingers mapped every scar and muscle like she was writing a memory. My hands moved along her body like a language I'd forgotten, but was learning again, fluid, reverent. The way her breath hitched when I kissed the inside of her knee. The way her spine arched when my fingers found that perfect rhythm. The way she whispered my name, soft, broken, almost like prayer. I didn't want to sleep, I didn't want the night to end, because somewhere between the second glass of wine and her head resting on my chest, I realized I didn't just want her. I was starting to need her. And that scared the hell out of me. Sunday morning crept in like it didn't want to disturb anything. I woke to the sound of soft rain tapping the window. Elena was still asleep. Her face turned toward me, hair fanned across the pillow like spilled ink. Her arm rested across my stomach, fingers barely curled against my side. And in that moment, something settled deep in my chest. Not desire, not excitement, longing. The kind that's quiet, dangerous. The kind that makes you imagine Sunday mornings like this for more than just a weekend. She stirred gently, her breath warm against my ribs. Then her voice groggy and low. "You're still here." I looked down at her, brushing a thumb along the edge of her jaw. Where else would I be? She smiled, sleepy, soft. But beneath it, something unsure. "You could have left," she whispered. "Didn't want to." Her lips found mine again. Not hurried, just confirmation that we were still here. Still wrapped in something real, even if we hadn't named it. We stayed in bed longer than we should have. Talked about nothing and everything. I learned she used to paint, that she once dreamed of moving to Italy, that she likes thunderstorms more than sunshine, that her favorite scent is vetiver, the one she wore that night, warm and smoky like a secret held too long. She learned I hadn't spoken to my father in 5 years, that I never stayed in one place long, that I don't believe in fate, but I believe in moments, and that this one with her felt too sharp to be an accident. We didn't say the word relationship. We didn't say this can't happen. We didn't have to. Because we already knew where we were standing, right on the edge. The drive back was slow. Clouds broke overhead sunlight pushing through like it had been waiting for us to return. Elena rode with one leg tucked under her sunglasses on her hand resting on the console beside mine, not quite touching, but close. She didn't speak much. Neither did I. But it wasn't discomfort. It was something else. Like we were both holding something too fragile to say out loud. Her house came up first. I pulled into the driveway and killed the engine. The yard looked exactly the same, but everything inside me had changed. We sat in silence for a few seconds. Then she unbuckled slowly, back to the real world. "Yeah," I nodded. "For now." She looked over at me, her fingers drifting to the door handle but not pulling. "Thank you, Logan, for everything." I didn't say you're welcome. I just reached for her hand. "Tell me if this becomes too much," I said softly. She looked at me, really looked. And for a second I saw it. The fear, the pull, the weight of what we'd just done. "I will," she whispered. She leaned over, kissed me once, lingering, tender. And then she stepped out of the truck. I watched her walk up the porch, keys dangling from her fingers. She paused at the door, turned, and gave me one last look. Not goodbye, not invitation, just truth. And then she disappeared inside. Monday came like a slap. Back at the job site, Caleb was already there loading supplies into the truck. He looked the same as always, just a guy in a worn-out tee sipping gas station coffee, humming some 90s alt-rock tune. He had no idea. And that twisted something in me. "You do anything this weekend?" he asked, tossing a coil of wire into the bed. "Yeah," I said evenly. "Got away for a bit." Cleared my head. "Nice," he said. "I was down at my uncle's, family BBQ. My mom said thanks again, by the way, for helping with that light." My chest tightened. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Because that light, that was a wire. But we'd lit a fire, and no one knew it but us. The messages didn't stop. But they changed. Now they came at night. Fewer emojis, more pauses between the lines, more space for things unsaid. "Thinking about you. The deck looks so much better now. Wish I'd met you when I was younger." That last one hit me the hardest. Because I didn't wish she was younger. I didn't want her different. I wanted her the way she looked at me, like I wasn't just some temporary thing, the way she touched me, like she was letting go of years of loneliness in every fingertip. But we'd crossed into a place where we couldn't stay, not without burning something down. Then one night the phone lit up again, but this time it wasn't casual. "Caleb's coming by tomorrow. Thought you should know." No punctuation, just tension. I replied after a long pause. "Do you want me to stop coming around?" The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared. Then again, finally, I don't know. I just don't want anyone getting hurt. And there it was, the twist I had felt building in my chest for days. Not a betrayal, not regret, just the weight of reality. We weren't just a quiet weekend anymore. We were a secret, a line crossed, a friendship hanging in the balance. Weeks passed. I kept my distance, but I didn't stop thinking about her. Some nights I drove by the house, windows glowing soft, porch lights steady, and I wondered if she stood at the window watching. I wondered if her fingers still traced the curve of her wine glass, remembering how I kissed her there. Then one afternoon, I found a note tucked under the windshield of my truck at the hardware store. No name, just 6 words written in clean, elegant script. Some things aren't meant to fade, and beneath it a pressed wildflower. She hadn't said goodbye. She didn't have to. What we had wasn't about forever. It was about now. About the way people find each other in moments they're not supposed to. About how sometimes the most unforgettable stories are the ones you can never tell out loud.